Yeah. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another podcast from Immortal Toys, where we talk all things mental health. Today's episode is a slightly different case, where we're not talking about a mental health disorder, but instead we're talking about an experience which can lead to poor mental health or poor cognitive skills or poor appreciation of life. And that word or experience is divorce. Right? So my guest today is a person whom I've known for over 20 years now, and his name is Rishi Gupta. He's based out of the UK, and so let's start unpacking divorce, Rishi. Talk us a bit through the experience, what happened, and what led to it. Over to you.
Um, so in terms of what happened, we both are working professionals and we found little time to connect and, you know, just be with each other and sort of work on the relationship, let's say. And that's what led to mainly us drifting apart to the extent that she thought there wasn't much point in us being together as a married couple.
Right.
And that's in a very short, succinct way the main reason to why it happened.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. So this is the case with a lot of married couples these days. They're both husband and wife working, and they find limited time, quality time together. So what
Yeah,
kind of advice would you give to them as to how can they keep the connection alive?
I would say to it's important to prioritize um, relationships. Definitely, all relationships. I would say,
Mm,
life is about being healthy. Yes, of course, having some money, so wealth. But wealth
mm,
is not just money. Wealth is having money and being able to enjoy it. So what's the point
mm,
of having money and not being able to enjoy it? So
mm,
and you enjoy it with people,
mm,
and even your relationship with yourself is also a part of that.
mm,
And if you don't have a good relationship with yourself, it's unlikely that you have good relationships with others as well.
mm,
So I feel a big part of being mentally healthy is giving value to those relationships, whether it's your own with yourself or with
mm,
people that you care about or people that care about you. And in being a working couple, I think both parties need to acknowledge that, acknowledge the
mm.
fact that they are having these limitations of time, and
Mm.
then take concrete steps to make time and make
So what
sure.
so what would these concrete steps be, like date nights or
Yeah,
weekend getaways?
yeah. I mean, date nights, weekend getaways, but not just when it gets too much. When it's like, oh, we've been working so hard for so many months, let's get out. No, it's more of
Right.
scheduling it in, planning it in.
Mm,
The most
mm,
successful and happiest people in the world are those who plan their fun times first.
mm,
The you need to work around your life, not
mm,
make your life fit around your work.
mm,
That can make a big difference. And if that intention is there from both parties in a marriage or in any relationship,
mm,
then it is more likely to blossom.
Interesting. So looking back, what do you think you could have done differently, or do you think it was possible to do anything differently?
Well, nobody can go back in time, but if I
Mm,
could sort of tell my past self of what I could and couldn't have or should have done rather, I would
mm,
say to just check in,
mm,
communicate, not just go with the flow, but actually be more aware of what's going
mm,
on and be more curious
mm,
and make a more sincere effort of not just keep going, but keep
mm,
growing,
mm,
together as a couple, as an individual. And I feel I got quite complacent. Like
mm,
I had I had the basics. I had, money was decent and life was decent and wife
mm,
was decent and everything was okay. So I just
mm,
sort of got a bit complacent in terms of
mm,
not making any extra efforts to improve anything really, any parts of my life. It's like this is good, this is fine.
Mm.
So I think just being aware of that complacence, being aware of that, being stuck on a hamster wheel, so to speak, and
Mm.
recognizing that this is not what life is about. Life is about growing. Life is about getting
Yeah.
better.
So
And
basically, what I understand what you're saying is that too often divorced couples wait till it's too late. They're trying to fix a sinking ship.
yeah,
When the holes are already pouring out water, that's
yeah,
when people wake up and they're like, "Dude, we need to fix something."
yeah. Well, even if it's not got that far, and you can plug the holes, you can still survive,
Mm.
and even
Mm.
make it to the shore. But
Mm.
it's what happens most cases is one or both parties just jump out and make their own way to the shore,
Mm.
and sometimes the other can be left drowning, and that I
Correct.
think is one segue, let's say, into having mental health issues as well,
Mm.
because there can be like a stronger party and a slightly more not as resilient party, which ends up being like, oh, my life is over because I couldn't sustain this relationship, so I won't be able to
Mm.
sustain any other relationship in my life,
Correct.
and all that
Mm.
negativity can creep in and almost get a
Mm.
bit too much
Right.
for in some instances. Yeah.
Right. Right. Interesting. So, tell you something that while this entire uh, experience was unfolding before you, uh, you were drifting apart. You guys were living almost separate lives, and you were busy with your work schedules. Right? Uh, what were some of the ways in which a person can avoid complacency and be more attentive to what's happening around them? What could they do?
I think just being self-aware, being almost conscious and open to recognizing just that complacency and that lack of growth. And
Hmm.
like if you're not growing, you are dying.
Hmm.
So if you're not, like, we all have limited time on this planet. So if you're
Hmm.
not moving forward,
Hmm.
then you are moving forward to just your grave and not doing much else.
So
So
was divorce like a death for you, a death of a relationship? Did it feel like that?
it did. And in many ways, it was like a sort of rebirth out of
Hmm.
that for me.
Hmm.
Like it's that a part of me died and a new part of me is born, who
Hmm.
is better, more powerful, more resilient, more
Hmm.
self-sufficient than the old Rishi Gupta ever was. So this is Rishi Gupta
Hmm.
2.0 that you're talking to.
Right, right. And since then, have you ever thought about getting married again, or what is your perspective now?
Not specifically. I've been busy with just building my own business and
Hmm.
seeing that as a priority.
Hmm.
I haven't looked into that. I haven't made any efforts to really find
Hmm.
myself another wife.
Right.
And you make efforts and then things happen. Sometimes things that can just happen, like love
Hmm.
happens at first sight and all that
Right.
stuff. But most of the times when those things happen, they're not that thought through. So
Hmm.
having been bitten once, obviously there is
Hmm.
some what's the word, hesitation probably from
Hmm.
my side
Hmm.
as well in
Hmm.
wanting to put myself out there. But
Hmm.
I find a lot of joy and happiness in building something new and taking it
Hmm.
forward and helping people is very rewarding, more so
Hmm.
than being with a wife. I
Hmm.
have my daughter, so I
Hmm.
feel that she's a big part of my being,
Hmm.
having a parental, almost a role model kind of relationship where
Hmm.
I feel I'm doing a pretty good job.
Interesting. So you mentioned that a part of you died. What part of it was you? Was it that died with the divorce?
It was that part of me that was just complacent, that guy who was okay with uh, okay.
Okay.
Now I'm not okay with okay. If I end up, I don't know, spending 4 hours not achieving anything and not making any progress in my life and not
Mm,
done anything that I could do to improve some facet of my life,
mm,
it it bothers me. It actually bothers me.
mm,
So like every waking hour that I spend is
mm.
helping me grow in some way or the other.
I'm
If
sure
I'm
you feel a lack. I'm sure you feel a lack of a companion in some sense, given that you
not
were
really.
married for a bunch of years. You have a daughter. No,
No, I don't feel that. As I
no.
said, like my business is that because it's the starting of a business, it's so
Mm,
involving and so much creativity is required to sort of
mm,
um, put into that I
mm,
think that craving is gone because of that. Because, I mean, after at the end of the day, Harsh, it's all about energy. You have
mm,
that's balancing the energy. So
mm,
there is creative energy inside us. There is masculine. There's feminine,
mm.
and
Correct.
most of that creative energy is feminine. So
Correct.
if you are exposed to that creative side of yourself more so,
Mm,
then
mm,
you don't, that craving is that itch is satisfied quite
mm, mm.
quite easily. So, and that's so much more productive than, and it's so much it's so much more you can control it because
Correct.
another person comes with their own stuff,
Mm, mm,
and you can't expect to you don't need to control anything for another
mm.
person, but you still need to manage their mood swings and emotions as well as yours. So this is easier. This is so much more fun, and of course I have all autonomy in terms of what I want to do and how I want to do it.
Okay. And you went through therapy also, right? When you went to trying to fix the marriage.
We had some couples counseling, yes.
How did that go?
That was before the final divorce happened. So there was
Mm.
another incident in the distant past that we were having some marriage troubles.
Okay.
So then we went for therapy, and
Mm.
that sort of, I think it just put the issues under the carpet rather than solve anything. So
Okay.
that's,
Really.
yeah, that's how I felt about it. Maybe if we would have continued with it, things could have got better, but we had
Mm.
a bunch of sessions, 5, 10, something like
Mm.
that. And by the end of those sessions, we were somewhat in a better place, and that better place was good enough to carry on, sort of thing. And we
Okay.
carried on for another 2 years before we finally got divorced.
Okay. Hmm. So take me a bit through that experience of finalizing divorce. What did that feel like, and how did that happen?
Um, well, every situation is different in divorce, but my personal experience, it was a bit long drawn because of things like finances and things like childcare arrangements that needed to be
Mm.
settled,
Mm.
and the courts can take a long time.
Mm.
And I think because both both myself and my daughter's mother are migrants, so
Mm.
we didn't have a situation where if because of the divorce is happening and because things are not well between us,
Mm.
one of us would go to their parents' house.
Mm.
You would have to take a flight and go,
Mm.
live somewhere else. And
Right.
having a child, it's not, you can't take the child away from one parent. Well, people
Right.
do, but
Mm.
fortunately, we were not in that sort of situation where she went AWOL with my daughter or I did anything like that. But
Mm.
we were kind of stuck in the same
Mm.
house for a long time while all this being settled. So it was
Mm.
even more difficult. It was more traumatic, more sort of emotionally
Mm.
draining because it's like you're having to be with a person that you don't want to be with.
Mm.
And for an extended period of time, that can be really difficult. So that was probably the toughest part of my life where I've ever faced that much drama and hardship almost.
Mm.
And but I was able to pull through, even all with all that going on. I was able to
Mm.
take myself out of it. I went to India for a long time, a few
Hmm.
months, and then was able to come back and make things right and also find my own space while
Hmm.
dealing with all of this. So yeah, it took longer than it needed to, but it can take even it could have been worse, man. So I think I
Hmm.
count my blessings in terms of um, how much more wrong it could have gone, and it didn't.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
um, that whole experience taught me a lot of things, and it made me actually look inwards a lot more than I would have otherwise.
Okay. And how did you guys broach the topic or explain the experience or the arrangement to your daughter? How did that conversation go?
Well, as I said, like when the divorce proceedings started, we were still in the same house, so
Hmm.
our daughter was well aware of seeing us not get on with each other, and
Hmm.
we had some arguments in front of her, which I'm not proud of, but
Hmm.
there is only so much you can shelter a child
Hmm.
from when you're all living in the same house and there's not a cordial and loving relationship. It's
Hmm.
all quite evident, and
Hmm.
children, believe me or not, is are more susceptible, more aware of,
Sensitive, let's say.
more in
Yeah.
tune, more sensitive, and more in tune
Yeah.
with what's going on. I feel because they don't have as many distractions like work and
Hmm.
I don't know other relationships and stuff. So for them, their parents are their lives, their whole.
So did she have any frank, stupid, candid questions as to what's going on, Dad? What's
She
happening?
did, yeah, she did, and I was quite honest and upfront with her, and I would, I think at times overshare, and
Hmm.
but I feel we both, me and her, are much better because of
Hmm.
that, and she sees me as a um, better person because of
Hmm.
not having restricted my feelings or lied to her
Hmm.
about things or
Hmm.
sugarcoat things. I don't sugarcoat. I'm very direct, very straightforward. If I feel something, I'll say it.
So
And the same way,
at that point, when you were being this frank and candid with your daughter, she was quite small, right? So did you
she
ever
was
think that, how old was she?
so from from the ages of let's say 5 to 7, she experienced all of this
Yeah,
drama.
so that's a particularly uh, how should I say the important period for a
Yeah,
child. You
yeah,
know, they're going through being from being a child to being like a slightly younger,
yeah,
youngish teenager, that kind of phase,
yeah.
right?
They're going from toddler to being a child.
Yeah,
That's
from
it.
toddler to being a child. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, didn't you think that she would then go to your wife at that point and talk to her, saying the dad is saying this over to you? What did
Yeah,
you?
well, it didn't bother me what she wanted to say to, uh, her mom. That's her
Hmm.
prerogative. If she wants to discuss something with her mom, she should feel
Hmm.
free to. And I
Hmm.
always encouraged her to talk about anything that she wanted to talk about, express it. If
Hmm.
she has something on her mind, it's better out than in.
Hmm.
There's no point feeling emotionally constipated. It has to be,
Hmm.
it has to be quite. It's very important to not sort of
Hmm.
hold back and not restrict yourself into if there's something on your mind that you want to talk to someone about, just go ahead and do it.
Okay. So over the years, have you met other friends or colleagues who have gone through divorce uh, and exchanged notes as to what their experience has been like? Has that happened with you?
Not really. I wouldn't say not specifically. I haven't. I have come across people who've been through divorce, but I haven't like shared our experiences as such.
Okay, but you would say that every divorce is unique because
Yes,
of the two
absolutely.
people involved and their relationship and the
The
dynamic.
person is unique. The relationship is unique. The situation is unique. There's just so many variables that you
Mm.
can't generalize
Mm.
this stuff in any way. I think.
Right, right. Interesting. Okay, so we unpacked divorce to quite an extent, and you mentioned in the note which you shared that it's helped you become more self-aware and conscious of things around you, and
Mhm.
that's helping you with your work and also making the world a better place through your
Mhm.
work and your company. So talk us a bit through that as to how did that transition happen? When did you make that switch from being dead to being alive, and how that has translated into your life?
So while all that was going through, there was feelings of self-sabotage and self-doubt.
Hmm.
That just feeling not enough, and
Hmm.
it must be something wrong with me that this is happening to me, and
Hmm.
um, but through thinking about it and through having some conversations with some, um, let's say, better informed about their emotions and well-being kind of people.
Hmm.
And this was some like support that I got from charities, some
Hmm.
friends, family as well.
Hmm.
Um, I was able to recognize that this is a situation that it's not all my fault, that's for sure. Of course,
Hmm.
I can't say that I can absolve myself of all responsibility, but of course,
Hmm.
it takes two to tango, and
Hmm.
it's a situation that it was what it was, and it shouldn't be something that I needed to blame myself for, but
Hmm.
just see what was going on and be present in the moment.
Hmm.
And even that book, The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle,
Hmm.
was quite
Hmm.
quite a revelation for me to
Hmm.
sort of be listening to that and be
Hmm.
aware of that in that time, which also
Hmm.
helped quite a lot of recognizing that what's happened has happened.
Hmm.
There's no point crying about spilled beans or spilled milk,
Hmm.
whatever you call it, but it's
Hmm.
just a matter of being present, recognizing what's going on, and seeing it through as it is. It is what it is. So why
Hmm.
moan and cry about what's already
Yeah.
gone?
So Rishi,
Instead, just
this is something which everybody knows at a very basic level, that we should
hmm,
all try to live in the now, right?
hmm,
But to internalize it and to actually make it a way of life is a
hmm.
challenge. It doesn't come
It is.
easily.
It is. Yes, and it comes with that awareness. So when
Hmm.
you see yourself or you observe yourself going back in the past and sort of having those negative feelings of, oh,
Hmm.
this happened and I did this, and that's when that check needs to come into place, that I'm
Hmm.
going in the past. This is not
Hmm.
helping me. It's not helping anybody.
Hmm.
So let's not do that. Let's be in the now. Let's do what needs to be done now and not
Hmm.
bother about that too much. Yes, if there are thoughts coming down, it's
Hmm.
better to even take a pen and paper and just reflect on it. Like, okay, this
Correct.
came up. Is there anything I can learn from that? Rather, so
Hmm.
put a positive spin on it, saying that, okay, this is coming to me. I don't want to ignore it.
Hmm.
Let it come, and then reflect on it, write
So
about it.
you've done this reflection or
Yeah.
journaling on your you've done it. You've gone
Yes.
through that
Yes.
process. And
Yes.
what did that yield to you? How did that make you feel, and what did that yield?
The way I saw it was mostly recognizing what had happened. If those things were if those experiences were isolated or were they a part of some sort of a pattern,
Hmm.
and then recognizing what triggers that pattern, like
Hmm.
if I'm getting angry about certain things, what am I getting angry about? And then
Hmm.
if there are some sort of similarities in those occurrences,
Hmm.
then finding that those similarities and being more prepared for it. So, for
Hmm.
example, like, oh, if somebody says these set of words to me or speaks to me in this certain way,
Hmm.
that triggers a reaction from me. So
Hmm.
it's not them, it's me. you know.
Hmm.
So it needs to be recognized that why is that triggering me? Okay, it's
But
triggering
you
me.
have to stand up for yourself also, right? You can't have
Yeah,
people walking over you, right?
absolutely. But equally, how you manage your emotions, especially when it comes to something like anger, is in
Hmm.
your control. So,
Hmm.
having an episode of erupting with that anger is not going to
Hmm.
help anyone.
Hmm.
So, channelizing that anger to be able to, anger is important. It's important. It's a self-defense mechanism. But
Right.
channeling it in a way that actually helps is where
Hmm.
the consciousness comes in. That's what separates us from animals to
Hmm.
humans. Animals
Right.
also get angry, but they start biting. And if we also
Right.
start doing that, then what's the difference?
Right. Interesting. Okay. So coming towards the end of our podcast, we have about 5-10 minutes to go. How would you summarize your experience and learning from divorce?
As I said, like just being more cognizant of what was going on, and I feel it was a bit of a jolt. Like, he kind of
Hmm.
held me and shook me that, dude, you're
Hmm.
you're just surviving. This is not.
Hmm.
It wasn't good enough for her,
Hmm.
and in many ways, I feel it. I was doing injustice to myself of
Hmm.
having infinite potential and almost wasting it by just being
Hmm.
mediocre and
Hmm.
sort of being okay with, I don't know, 8 hours of work and 5 hours of watching Netflix and
Hmm.
2 hours of eating and the rest of
Hmm.
the time sleeping. And
Hmm.
that becomes too comfortable a routine to just get set into, and then, life passes you by, and, at some point you just die and nobody gives a shit.
Hmm.
So recognizing that staying in this pattern is not taking me anywhere. It's Yes,
Hmm.
it's okay for survival. It's okay to be have an okay life, but
Hmm.
that's not what it's about. I feel life is more dynamic, more, there to be enjoyed and seized. Almost there are opportunities everywhere. You
So tell
just
me,
got.
Rishi, that I get where you're coming from, but let's say tomorrow you were to meet a couple, or you were to meet a person who's married,
Hmm.
and he says that, listen, we are going through some trouble. We are
Hmm.
both working people, and we're drifting apart.
Hmm.
What should I do? What can we do? What would you tell him or
Um, I would say first of all, have they spoken to each other? Have
her?
they
Hmm.
actually expressed what is going on? They actually not just said that, oh, I'm not happy, but really
Hmm.
listened in, both of them.
Hmm.
Now, I mean, obviously, two people can't be speaking at the same time and both people listening. There has to be sort of one after the other, or some sort of
Hmm.
arrangement that happens where
Hmm.
they actually sit down and listen to each other. What
Hmm.
is going on?
Hmm.
And in a lot of instances, I feel two people, when they're in the shit, so to speak, is very hard to hear each other. So having
Hmm.
some sort of help, whether it's a coach, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a mutual friend who can sort of hold space, can be really helpful. So that's another thing that I would recommend to them.
Hmm.
And in their infancy, let's say, in a relationship, when it's about sort of starting out,
Hmm.
since the divorce, I have been recommending a lot of young couples that I've come across to just
Hmm.
have a bit of a foundation and not just get too swayed by, oh, you're in love, you got married, and everything is going to be hunky dory. There are
Hmm.
shit ton of responsibilities that will come on your shoulders, and children being a big part of it. Even if you
Hmm.
don't have children, there are emotional uh, aspects of you that change, because when you're
Hmm.
not married, there is an element of, I need to impress this person, but when you
Hmm.
get married, it's like, well, we're married now, so we don't need to do that sort of thing.
Hmm.
But it's important to keep that fire burning, so to speak.
Hmm.
So that's when I think things like being consciously aware of the fact that you are a married couple, and being also aware of the fact that half of the marriages in this world are don't survive, and
Right.
even the half that do survive, very few of those are actually happy
Correct.
marriages where the two people are, like, joined by the hip and walking
Correct.
towards some sort of common goal in life, or have
Hmm.
some goals that are common, or have some sense
Hmm.
of, two bodies, one soul kind of
Hmm.
situation. Very few.
Hmm. Hmm.
So you're consciously bringing that in your awareness and being aligned with, and having, I don't know, weekly, monthly, if why not daily conversations about, okay, how are we doing today? How are we doing as a couple? How are we doing as
Does
individuals?
this become a bit abstract, or is it easy to talk about these issues? Like, how are we doing as a couple? What does that mean?
Well, I'm not saying that that needs to be the question that could be asked. Whatever
Hmm.
comes naturally to them. So the
Hmm.
important thing is to see the relationship as an entity,
Hmm.
not just, um, you are my wife and I am your husband.
Hmm.
Just seeing the relationship itself, that this is a marriage, that
Hmm.
we are two people in this holy matrimony that's
Hmm.
supposed to be beyond and more than the sum of its parts.
Hmm.
So for it to really blossom, there needs to be some specific effort put into it. And that
Hmm.
specific effort could come in the form of just checking in, first of all.
Hmm.
Check in with each other, however you want to check in. You want to give
Hmm.
each other a hug, you just want to say hi to each other nicely, you
Hmm.
know, whatever it is, whatever comes
Hmm.
naturally to both people, and whatever both people are willing to consciously do. The
Hmm.
problem happens when people become unconscious of the fact that you are married and you are in a
Hmm.
relationship, and you just everything else that's going on in life just takes over,
Hmm.
and marriage just becomes a, I don't know, just a by the way sort of thing. So I think it's
Yes.
important to keep it a little bit more front and center, make specific time for each other, schedule times when you are going to be spending time with each other uninterrupted. Sitting and
Hmm.
watching television is together is not that, that doesn't
Hmm.
count. I'm sorry.
Hmm.
Staring at something that is giving you input, not each other.
Hmm.
So I think it's that aspect of that connection needs to be there, and that
But Rishi,
connection.
tell me something, that this feeling of being aware or being conscious of having some sense of your emotional and mental stability is critical for any aspect of life, whether
Yes.
it be marriage or it be any other activity which you are trying to undertake, a job or a
Mhm.
company, or
Mhm.
whether you're an entrepreneur, whatever it is. Right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So how is it that one cultivates and finds that spark of consciousness to
Well,
become?
for me, it was my divorce.
Hmm.
For me, it was that divorce that really sort of kicked me in the teeth to recognize that I was in a, um, I was in a losing battle, so to speak, with myself.
Hmm.
But it can come through being around people who are, uh, let's say, a bit more conscious, bit more aware. They
Hmm.
see something in you that they recognize that, dude, what the fuck are you doing?
Hmm.
While being able to sort of talk to you about, and you also feeling comfortable to be around or have some
Hmm.
people in your life that are that sort of thing, that
Hmm.
sort of way. If not,
Hmm.
then it could come through books, it could come
Hmm.
through some sort of YouTube video that you watch that like, and but again, YouTube videos are designed to keep you stuck in that YouTube video rather than taking action. But sometimes things can happen, sometimes
Hmm.
there can be a bit of a spark that
Hmm.
inspires you to recognize that, what the fuck am I doing? Is this
Hmm.
taking me somewhere? And I think
Hmm.
having that self reflection is important rather than just, as I
Hmm.
said, like that's what separates us from animals, having that consciousness, having
Hmm.
awareness, having
Hmm.
having the ability to reflect about what has
Hmm.
happened and what is going on.
Well,
Then,
we don't really know what goes on inside animals' minds because all our experiments are done in a controlled setting, and it's
yeah,
debatable. But I get
yeah,
your
it's
point. That
debatable.
you have a sense of
Consciousness.
awareness or
Yeah,
consciousness. It's,
awareness and consciousness is, and I'm not saying animals don't have consciousness and don't have awareness, but
hmm.
not even nearly to the same extent that we do.
Correct. That
I
I
would.
agree. Yes.
So,
Hmm.
and especially when it comes to creating connections, we
Hmm.
human beings, there's a reason why we are the most abundant species on the planet.
Hmm.
Maybe not in numbers, let's say, but
Hmm.
most significant at least.
Hmm.
So we can do anything if we set our minds to it, but we've got to set our minds to something rather than
Hmm.
just being okay with the ongoings, and push
Hmm.
ourselves. And I think when people get too comfortable, that's a sign. So when you were saying like what should people be watching out for, I would say comfort. If you're getting too comfortable, some something's not right. So that discomfort, it doesn't
Hmm.
have to be discomfort that is putting you through immense amounts of pain that you cannot take. What I'm
Hmm.
saying about discomfort is like growing pains, like
Hmm.
doing something that puts you outside your comfort zone, but still you are able to push through it. And when you
But
do push
tell
through it, you grow.
me, Rishi, that suppose a couple does go out for dates, date
Mm,
nights, or
mm,
goes for getaways,
mm.
uh, keeps the child happy. All of that is happening. Can there still be internal or chronic issues in their relationship?
For sure, they can be, and there is no other way to find out other than just being able to communicate.
Hmm.
And both parties should be open to hearing what the other has to say without judgment or with as little judgment as possible. and let
mm,
the other person just express themselves that, look, I, from a point of view of a person who sees something not quite right in the other, goes
mm,
like, I've just noticed something's a bit off.
mm,
Okay, just talk to me, and I'm here to listen. I'm not gonna judge. I'm gonna shut my mouth for, I don't know, the rest next 15 minutes or 10 minutes
mm,
or however long you want to just express
mm,
yourself to me,
mm,
and I'm here to listen. And then
mm,
actually listen.
mm,
It's important to go not be defensive and be like, well, the other person starts opening up and you go, ah, yeah, but I did that because of you did that. No, just shut the fuck up and listen. When you're saying that
mm.
you want to listen, just listen. And then, of
Interesting.
course, express your, and then take turns. Of course, the other person also should have the opportunity to listen in and speak.
Interesting. That's a great conversation, I think, Rishi, about divorce and unpacking it. Thanks a lot for your time. Would you
No
like
problem.
to add anything? Any other information, caveat, anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I think just having self-awareness is important and it's great, but it's also important to be there for other people. And I feel
Mm,
there is a lot of pain in this world and in people's lives, and
mm,
it's important to have compassion and
mm,
recognize that everybody has their shit going on. There is
mm,
far too much going on in other people's lives that you have no idea about. So
mm,
before you start thinking that, oh, my life is so shit, really, come
mm,
on. Like, there are
mm,
so many other people who have it much worse than you. So stop
mm,
whining about how shit
mm,
your life is. And, if you can't do anything about your own life, step out and
mm,
help some other people, because that
mm,
will give you purpose, that will give you reason, that will give you joy of
mm,
recognizing that I'm doing something that's important rather than just wallowing in my own sorrows.
mm,
So that's what I would say, to just be more aware and conscious of other people's uh, emotions and how they are going through whatever they're going through, and
mm,
don't be so quick to judge,
mm,
and be curious. And it's important to
mm,
sort of have that curiosity front and center for
mm.
yourself and for others. And that's what makes us human
So
and
I
so.
guess the key to a successful marriage is also the key to being a successful person.
Absolutely. And I think that person comes first, because if you can't, like, if you can't, if you can't sort yourself out, then it's,
Mm,
if you don't have a decent relationship with yourself, it's unlikely that you'll have a good relationship with anybody,
mm,
right?
mm,
So that self needs to be there. It's not like two halves coming together and making a whole. No, it's two
mm,
wholes that come together and make 1 plus 1 is 11. You
mm,
know, it's a 1 plus 1. It's not a point 0.5 plus point 0.5. That
mm,
usually ends badly.
mm.
It doesn't become one.
True, true.
So it's important to be whole ourselves, and that goes a long way.
Great. On that note, I think we can wrap. Thank you again, Rishi, for your time and your candid and frank recall of your experiences and how you would advise people to go about their lives. Thanks a lot again.
Thank
I'll
you.
pause the recording and we'll chat offline. Yeah.
Okay.